Hello. Okay, so this is where we left off last time, and I was just reviewing a bunch of how all this stuff starts to connect together, and I'm forgetting how when following along in a lesson or whatever, sometimes each step looks really simple, and then when you're trying to recreate it in your own fashion, you start to appreciate how well that it was put together in the first place. Uh, so, anyways, I'm going to continue on here, and I think we're going to get there in a good way. We we've made some sub elements, right? We've made buttons. We've made our text value row, which was just a piece of text with a value and this fancy named slot. And then we've created one built off of it, which included the uh, the the value and the row and the value as one item, and then we were able to add our button as an addition to that. So now, um, I guess the next step here would be to make a um, our set that's going to contain all of these items, right? Like we've got all of our attributes that we created, right? Let me just zoom in that a little bit and make this up a little bit bigger. So we had all of our vital statistics, our primary attributes, and our secondary attributes. So I want a display of all of these, be it for just debugging on the template side, but eventually you're going to want some sort of display of these in your game or whatever items they turn out to be or whatever they end up being called. So let's create a menu or a stat display for these, which is basically going to be a canvas, or not a canvas, but an overlay that has a whole bunch of these text value button rows or just text value rows, depending on which one it is. And we can create that object, and then after that we'll create an overall overlay for our HUD that would be displayed all the time, and we'll put a button on it that'll open up this stat display, and and uh, and then we'll tie it together with a data structure that's going to populate everything um, for us and actively during gameplay. So let's get started on that. So what I want is to find my example that I'm following, and I'm going to come over here to my content browser, and I think I'm going to put it in here with the table. Mm, sure, sure. So in here, I'm going to create another uh, blueprint. Oh, no, I don't want a blueprint. I want a user interface widget blueprint, and I want to base it on our HFX user widget. And this one is going to be called HFX. Um, no, it's going to be a WBP widget blueprint, and it is our stat um, menu. Okay, I'm going to open that up, and we start from scratch again. So that's good. So let's start as we've started before. We are going to start with a size box. I'm going to drag one in here, and I'm going to again set this to desired as far as the screen size goes, and override width and height to I don't know, let's say 1,000 wide. Well, actually, how wide is our text value button row? This thing was 450 wide. And so if I wanted three columns of that, that'd be like 1350 wide. So let's make this like 1400 wide. And uh, I don't know, 800 tall. We'll see how that works. So inside my size box, I'm going to put an overlay. Grab an overlay, put that in there so that we can put a bunch of containers or a bunch of things in it. And right now I'm thinking of three main columns of information. I guess there should be some sort of title row at the top. So yeah, this gets into a lot of fun. I'm gonna pause here. I'm gonna fiddle with a couple of things and I'll come back and I'll show you what we got. Here is where this is headed. And I know it looks like a mess right now, but you know what? We got to start somewhere. So what I did was I took my size box and then my overlay, which we had before we started, and then I decided to have three main columns of data. So I put a horizontal box in, and then inside the horizontal box, I put in three vertical boxes, and the so the horizontal box, I had it to fill horizontally across the entire overlay and vertically to fill the whole thing. I don't know if I switch that to maybe just to the top. So it'll probably just grow as we put more stuff in it. Maybe we'll leave that because that might be a good function. Um, Maybe not. Well, doesn't really matter right now. In the first vertical box then, I added a text box with vital stats, and it was set to fill horizontally. What if we set it to center? I think maybe centering looks a little better. And the size can be automatic because it's just going to take up that entire row. And then, so the vital stats are our health, stamina, and mana. So they are just going to be values. They don't get buttons because you can't directly influence them. I then added a primary, or I should say another text box named primary attributes, and I'm going to center that one up in the horizontal again. And our primary attributes, I added our text value button row. These are the values that we're going to be able to adjust. And so I added 6 of those to be able to deal with that. I also added in a spacer in here between. So let's give that some y value. Let's give it a value of, let's say, what about 20? Let's just give them a little bit of a breathing room there. And then also in between our vertical boxes, I added a spacer and I made a gap of 20 on the X for that. And I put another one in between the second and third columns. In the second vertical box, I added a text value called secondary attributes, as you can see. I'm going to center that one up. And then I added 11 of our text value rows for each of our secondary attributes. And then I I probably should have a, I'm wondering if I should, anyways, that's getting picky about things. Let's just carry on. So there's my secondary attributes. And then in the third column, because this actually compacted up kind of nice, I created another one for kind of the overflow, or maybe this is where you could put like achievements, little bar graphs and stuff like that of, how many trees you've chopped down or whatever, right? Um, so I put just additional attributes, whatever it ultimately gets called. I'm going to center that up. And I just put one of our text value rows in here just as a placeholder. Now these are going to shrink down once we when we implement this, because the named slot will be empty. So this will zero down. And so we'll see how that ultimately looks when we get there. But that looks pretty good. Like color wise and everything else, we can play with different items. But I think I would be pretty happy to have that show up. Um, I think what we do need is a overall title to the whole thing. So I'm going to come back up to the top of above the horizontal box. I'm going to get another text box and I'm going to put it in and move it up here. I don't know why. Let's just want it filling the horizontal. Why did that? Because I got this horizontal box, I guess, aligning vertically at the top, but don't know why it didn't give me space for this. I'm gonna put a title in here just to see what I've got here. So I'm gonna just call this character uh, stats and achievements, and I'm gonna. Do I need to pad the top of this thing to move it down? Say 40 points, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, looks like I need to do that. Centering it in the alignment isn't any good. So we'll say top. I don't know why I didn't give the space for this, but that's kind of interesting. So anyways, we'll just put a top padding of 60 in here maybe. That looks pretty good. And this we will center, and it's got a nice 32 font size, so that's okay. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Um, we're going to want a button to be able to close this box when we're done with it. So let's put that in. What I probably should do is I'm going to adjust this a little bit. I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to right click on the character stats text box there. I'm going to say wrap it with, I want to wrap it with a horizontal box. So now it's inside a horizontal box and we got our text, and I'm going to come down to the bottom here and I'm going to get our square button, not the base, but the square button, and I'm going to drop it in the horizontal box. And so it's given us that there. I'm going to take this horizontal box and I'm going to fill it across and the square button, I'm gonna, no, I want to, the character stats, do I want it to fill? Yeah, so it filled up the entire space, and I'm going to center it. There we go. So now we've got that centered and placed. And I guess what I could do is if I was to put another vertical box in and then put these two horizontal boxes inside a vertical box, then I can probably get rid of that, having to deal with that padding. So let me grab a vertical box and put it in. I'm going to move it up to the top here. And then I'm going to grab my horizontal box and put it in there. And grab this horizontal box and I'm going to put it in there. Okay. There. And now if I go into into our first horizontal box where we had our character square button horizontal box, where did we put that padding? Where is this coming from again? Yeah, that's on this second horizontal box. We had that 60 padding, which we might want to keep, but if it was 0, it would just be tied up underneath it, which is maybe okay, and maybe a better way, because I don't like hard coding actual values for padding, unless it's because when you resize things, that might not work as well. Although I'm going to ultimately end up doing a similar thing here because I'm going to add a spacer. And maybe that's a better way to do it. I don't know. So I'm going to put a spacer between um, our first horizontal box and our second horizontal box. So I'm going to add it to the vertical box. And it's down here. Just going to scroll these up. And I want it to be in between them. And now the spacer, I can give a size. And I'm going to give a size of 20. No, that's X. I'm going to give it a size of 20. It can be a size of 1 in the other direction. There. That looks pretty awesome. We've got a button. So our button, we want it to be a close button. So, everybody knows a big X is for closing. And being red looks great. And yeah, I think that looks pretty awesome. We'll probably we're going to be adjusting these. We might expose them as variables so we can play with them, or we got to attach things to them. But that's another day. It's another time. I like what this is looking like. I think our overall overlay is fine. Far as its size, like our size box was 1400 by 800. So if I think of a screen of 1920 by 1080, because I'm not worried about smaller resolutions. We could probably tighten it up a little bit, but I think once we see it, again, this is a template. So any specific application that you're going to run, you might end up with much smaller font sizes or something like that, and obviously a bunch of different things in here. But this is going to be a good one for developing on because it's going to have a nice readable font for us to look at, and I think that's what we're going to deal or stay with right now. The So the next step is we are going to So these have to, um, we remember on our gameplay system, we've got gameplay tags and our attributes, which are our driving forces for our data. And then we've got this display of information. So now we're going to go back and start to look at creating the data side of attaching our gameplay tags to our gameplay attributes. And that will expose an ability or some additional information that we need to be able to tie these now together using our widgets. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe some more, and we'll move on to that. Thanks.